You're here because you want to get smart fast. So today, we're giving you a potential shortcut to income. Ultra-high-yield dividend stocks.
Exactly. We've been digging into a Motley Fool article. This one's from May 2nd, 2025. And it really zeroes in on 3 specific stocks with, well, some serious dividend payouts.
Right. So our mission today is to pull out the key info on these 3, why they might be good buys according to the article, and, the broader context.
And the source here is the Motley Fool. They've been around since '93. Financial services company aiming to make the world, as they say, smarter, happier, richer. Helps to know where the info is coming from.
Absolutely. And just quickly, for anyone maybe newer to this, dividend stocks, they're basically shares in companies, often pretty established ones, that regularly give back some profits to shareholders.
Yeah, it's often seen as a sign of, financial health. And there's data, too.
There is. That Hartford Funds study, they worked with Ned Davis Research, looking at data from 1973 all the way to 2024. It showed dividend payers returned about 9.2% annualized. Compare that to non-payers at just 4.31%. Big difference.
It really is. Now, you might hear ultra high yield and, think high risk. And sometimes that's true. It's smart to be cautious.
Definitely.
But this article focuses on what the author sees as no-brainer opportunities. Carefully vetted ones, supposedly. So should we jump into the first one?
Let's do it. First up, Pfizer, ticker PFE. The article points to a yield around, 7.5%?
Yeah, 7.46% to be specific, as of May 2025, which, for a big pharma company, that's quite high.
It is. So what makes it a no-brainer in the author's view?
Well, the core argument is about valuation. The idea is the market might be undervaluing Pfizer, mainly because sales from their COVID-19 stuff, Comirnaty and Paxlovid, dropped off a cliff.
Right, those were huge sellers for a while.
Huge. Over $56 billion combined in 2022. But then in 2024, that number was down closer to $11 billion.
Wow. Okay, that's a massive drop. I can see why investors might get nervous looking at that decline.
Totally understandable. But the article suggests, looking beyond just the COVID numbers.
That's more to the picture.
Exactly. Because even with that big COVID sales dip, Pfizer's total net revenue actually went up significantly, from about $41.9 billion in 2020 to $63.6 billion in 2024.
Huh. So a 52% increase in total revenue over that period.
Yeah. Which suggests the rest of their business, the non-COVID part, is actually pretty strong and growing.
Okay, so they're not just riding the coattails of the pandemic response. What's driving that non-COVID growth then?
A big piece is oncology, cancer treatments. They made a massive move buying Seagen, a cancer drug developer, back in December 2023.
Ah, the Seagen deal. That was huge, right? Like $43 billion.
That's the one. $43 billion. The idea is that brings in new drugs, boosts their pipeline, and should create some cost savings, too. Oncology is a major focus for future growth.
Makes sense strategically. Diversifying into a critical area like cancer. What about economic sensitivity? Pharma can be tricky sometimes.
That's a fair point. Patent cliffs are always a thing to watch. But generally, demand for essential brand name drugs tends to hold up pretty well, even if the economy slows down.
Right. People still need their medications. It provides a certain stability.
Exactly. A level of resilience.
So the business looks okay. Growth areas identified. How was the stock actually valued back in May 2025?
Well, according to the article, the valuation looked potentially attractive. The forward price-to-earnings ratio that's looking at expected future earnings was around 7.6.
And how does that compare historically?
The article noted it was about a 27% discount to its average forward PE over the prior 5 years.
A 27% discount. That's pretty significant. Could signal undervaluation.
It could. Of course, you have to ask why the discount exists. Was the 5-year average maybe inflated by peak COVID earnings? Or is the market pricing in other concerns like future patent expirations?
Good points. So the discount is interesting, but warrants a closer look from anyone considering it.
Absolutely. It's never just one number.
Right.
And we should mention, the author, Sean Williams, apparently holds Pfizer stock. The Motley Fool also recommends it. Disclosure is important.
Always. Okay, let's pivot to the second stock. Verizon Communications. Ticker VZ.
Right. Verizon, offering a yield, according to the article, of nearly 6.4%. Specifically, 6.39%.
Which is way above the market average, right?
Oh, yeah. The article mentioned it was something like 363% higher than the average S&P 500 yield at the time.
Wow. Okay. Now, Verizon had faced some challenges, as the article points out.
It did. A couple of main things. One was sort of sluggish growth compared to, say, the high-flying AI tech stocks that everyone was excited about.
Different kind of company.
Very different. And the second thing was interest rates. Remember the Fed hikes from March 2022 into mid-2023?
Yep. Hard to forget.
Well, for a company like Verizon that uses a lot of debt for big infrastructure projects like building out networks, higher rates mean higher borrowing costs. That can put pressure on things.
Makes sense. So, higher debt costs, slower perceived growth. But the article suggests things were looking up.
That's the argument. They pointed to the 5G rollout, providing, steady organic growth, expanding the network.
And they tend to keep their customers, right? Low churn.
Exactly. Very low churn rates historically. That leads to predictable cash flow, even if it's just modest sales growth. It's not flashy, but it's steady.
Okay, so 5G is one driver. Anything else?
Broadband connections were another positive. By the end of March 2025, they hit 12.6 million total broadband connections.
And that was growing.
Yep, up 13.7% from the year before. Again, maybe not explosive growth like in the early days of broadband, but it's consistent cash flow.
Yeah.
And it allows them to bundle services.
Right, bundling phone, internet, maybe TV. What about that debt issue? Were they making progress?
They were. The article highlights they'd cut their unsecured debt by over $13 billion, down from around $130.6 billion at the end of 2022 to $117.3 billion.
Okay, so actively managing the balance sheet. That's a good sign.
Definitely shows a focus on financial health. Gives them more flexibility.
So, summing up Verizon, steady core business, improving financials. What did the valuation look like?
Similar to Pfizer, the argument was that it looked like a bargain. Forward PE ratio was around 8.8 in May 2025.
Which seemed low compared to the overall market then.
Yeah, especially given how high market valuations were generally at the start of 2025. And again, disclosure, the Motley Fool recommends Verizon.
Got it. Okay, 2 down. The third one sounds a bit different. PennantPark Floating Rate Capital, ticker PFLT.
Yeah, this one's a different beast altogether. It's a BDC, a business development company.
Okay, BDC. And what do they do exactly?
They basically invest in middle market companies. Think smaller, maybe less established businesses. They provide both debt and sometimes equity financing.
And the yield here was even higher.
Significantly higher. Over 12%, according to the article, 12.04% to be precise. And they pay dividends monthly, which some income investors like.
Wow, over 12% paid monthly. That definitely gets your attention. But investing in smaller, maybe riskier companies, that sounds like it comes with extra risk.
It certainly does. Middle market companies are inherently riskier than, say, Pfizer or Verizon. They can be more vulnerable in downturns, a higher default potential.
So how does PennantPark generate such a high yield from that?
Well, precisely because these smaller companies are often seen as riskier and have fewer financing options, BDCs like PennantPark can charge them higher interest rates on loans.
Oh, okay. The risk premium.
Exactly. The article mentions that at the end of 2024, the weighted average yield on PennantPark's debt investments was 10.6%. That's how they fuel that high dividend.
Right. But generating yield is one thing, managing the risk is another. What protects PennantPark and its investors?
Good question. There are a few layers. One key aspect is that their entire debt portfolio consists of variable rate loans.
Variable rate. How does that help?
Well, remember those Fed rate hikes we talked about with Verizon? For PennantPark, when rates were going up, the interest income they received on their loans also went up.
Ah, so it benefited them in that rising rate environment.
Precisely. And even if rates were expected to be cut slowly from mid-2025 onwards, the income level was still elevated from those previous hikes. It offered some protection against rate changes.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the risk of the companies they lend to actually defaulting?
Yeah.
Going bankrupt?
That's the core risk with BDCs. PennantPark tries to manage this through diversification. Their average investment size was relatively small, around $13.8 million, so they aren't overly exposed to any single company failing.
Okay, spreading the risk.
And crucially, most of their debt investments, about $1.96 billion out of a $2.2 billion portfolio at the end of 2024, were first lien secured debt.
First lien secured. Meaning what, exactly?
It means if one of the companies they loan money to goes bankrupt, PennantPark is first in line to get paid back from the company's assets. It provides a significant layer of security compared to other types of debt or equity.
Got it. First claim on the assets. That definitely reduces the potential loss in a default scenario. And how is PennantPark valued?
The article pointed out it was trading at a discount about 10% below its book value as of the end of 2024.
Is that unusual for a BDC?
BDCs often trade closer to their book value, sometimes even at a premium. So a 10% discount was presented as potentially attractive, suggesting you could buy the assets for less than their stated worth.
Interesting. And any disclosures on this one?
Yes, the author, Sean Williams, also held a position in Pennant Park.
Okay, so let's quickly wrap this up. We looked at 3 ultra-high yield stocks from that May 2025 article. We had Pfizer, the pharma giant, yielding around 7.5%, seen as undervalued with oncology growth potential.
Then Verizon, the telecom, around 6.4% yield with steady 5G and broadband growth and improving its debt situation.
And finally, Pennant Park Floating Rate Capital, the BDC, yielding over 12%, specializing in secured floating rate loans to middle market companies.
That covers them. And it's really worth remembering, this was a snapshot based on analysis from May 2025. Market conditions, company performance, valuations, they all change, sometimes quickly.
Absolutely. The arguments for these stocks being no-brainers were tied to specific factors and prices at that point in time.
Right.
So maybe the final thought for you is this. How does dividend investing, maybe even these kinds of higher yield opportunities, fit into your financial picture? Is it something that aligns with your goals and risk tolerance? Definitely food for thought and further research.